I'll just take it like this. So, in graduate school, I had a class that I was the only girl, and the rest was a room full of Orthodox Jewish boys. And when I mean boys, I mean boys. They're like 21, 22, and I'm like 30. I know that makes me really old. And they're not just any Orthodox Jewish boys, they're Baal Teshuvah, which means they just became Orthodox. So being really, really Jewish is the most important thing in the world to them. So one day we're sitting around talking about, being Jewish and sort of going back and forth. And one of them says, "Do you know what disgusts me more than anything in the whole world? When a woman reads from the Torah." And the Torah is a sacred Jewish scroll. It's the Old Testament. I'm like, I'm in graduate school for Jewish literature. I read from the Torah. I know this is their rules. I know it in my heart, but yet I want to punch him in the face. So I sort of let their conversations go, and I'm stewing, and I'm stewing, and I'm stewing. And finally, on break from class, we're in the break room, they're sitting around talking about God knows what. And I said, "I can't stop thinking about what you said about Torah." He's like, "What do you mean what I said about Torah?" I said, that women touching it is the worst thing in the world. He's like, "Of course it's the worst thing in the world." "Why?" "Tradition." It's like, tradition? Female genital mutilation is tradition. That doesn't mean it's a good thing. He's like, tradition and nidah. You know what nidah is, right? Nidah is ritual, not ritual. It's when women are supposed to be pure. And it's a time of, it's cleanliness and purity and ritual purity. Now, nidah can be for anyone, which means men are supposed to be pure too. They have to wash their hands before they read from Torah. But a woman, during her period, is the most ritually impure. You're not allowed to touch your husband, you can't kiss him, you can't sleep in the same bed as him. And during the rest of the time, you also can't, women can't touch men. Okay, most of us know this about Orthodox Jews. So I was like, how do you know that a woman's having her period? "Well, you never know." So what do you mean you never know? A woman could be having her period at any time. And I was like, I think that's not true. "Well, it is true. And then she might touch the Torah and make it impure." I'm like, what, is she using it as a tampon? Like, it's just, you don't touch the Torah. So he's like, "Well, what are you going to tell me that's different?" I said, "What if a man's masturbating?" "Well, I'll give a man, masturbating beforehand, and then he goes and washes his hands a little and reads from the Torah. Doesn't that make it impure?" I give the men the benefit of the doubt. The woman could have her period at any time. The men probably aren't masturbating. Yeah, the men probably aren't masturbating. So basically, he's telling me that girls are either dirty all the time because they have their periods, or men are dirty all the time because they're thinking about women being women and, they can't handle themselves sexually, so they have to stay away from these women. I'm like, fine. So I walk away from the conversation, and I just want to get him, and I want to get him, and I want to get him. And again, I know that this is what these men think, but I can't stop. It just can't stop pissing me off. So the boys are still in the room, and I walk back to our classroom, and sitting around, and I'm like, what do I do together? So I look down, and I see his books. And again, it's graduate school for Judaism. So we have books about Judaism, books written in Hebrew with God in them. So I look down at his books, I look down at myself and my, inappropriate dressed self, married to a Gentile, have my boobs out probably. And I'm like, And I look around, and I take my hand, and I rub it all over his books. And then they start to come in, and I sit down, and he sits down next to me, and then he touches his books.